Welcome to episode 1 of the EYEAM Mental Health Podcast. We are the EYEAM brand CEOs. I am Monte Newsom.
I'm Will Jenkins.
And we have a very special guest here with us today. We have an award-winning realtor, real estate investor, author, also the founder of the Werking Mom LLC. She also holds a bachelor's degree in finance as well as an MBA in business administration and is currently in the process of obtaining her doctorate degree this upcoming year in 2022. We would like to introduce you guys to Ebony McArthur and also my mom. Welcome, Ebony, and how are you today?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you guys for having me on the first episode. I'm definitely so excited.
Thank you.
Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
So like Monte said, I am a mom of 4. Monte is my oldest son, as well as a wife. I'm a business owner. I have 5 businesses currently. So I am a real estate broker in Maryland, and I'm a licensed realtor in DC, Virginia, Pennsylvania, as well. I am the team leader of the McArthur Group, as well as the owner and CEO, as well as the owner and CEO of the Werking Mom, which I help most of the time first-time buyers with financial literacy, teaching them how to get basically be able to save, how to get their credit where it needs to be, and so forth. Oftentimes, first-time buyers don't know where to start. They don't know what to do. They just pretty much are like, hey, Miss Ebony, I want to buy a house, but I'm lost. I especially like to offer that service free of charge for any teen moms that are interested in obtaining a home ownership, free financial literacy through the Werking Mom, as well as obviously giving back to everybody in my hometown back in Baltimore. I pretty much love to make sure that anybody and everybody there, if you reach out to me, I'll go over and beyond to make sure we can get you the keys to your home. Like Monte said, real estate investing, that's kind of where I started at. I was a landlord and investor before I even obtained my real estate license. So obviously that's kind of my initial passion, is investing. And my slogan is kind of building wealth through real estate, because that's kind of what I believe in. It's tons of different ways to build wealth, but that's just kind of how I did it. So I like to teach other people how I started from nothing and kind of built everything that I have today. And as well as what Monte said, I am a full-time doctorate student. So I always push not only young people obtaining trades, because I am a believer in going to trade school, as well as college, because I will say that as I started obtaining these different degrees in business and finance and so forth, it just kind of elevated my mindset. But I always believe in both. So I don't ever take for granted the trade industry, because it's just so important to have those trades as a backup also.
Definitely. Woo. Speaking of trade, you for sure are a jack of all trades. You got your hand in a little bit of everything. As you do know, this is a mental health podcast, so we're going to basically touch on everything that you do a little bit, how you basically got started. Obviously, we do understand it didn't just happen overnight, and it was a process. So that's basically what we're here for. We want to understand your process, your thought process, your mindset going into it, any roadblocks you hit, how did you get there? So you did mention that you were a mom of 4. Describe being a teenage mom.
Well, I don't know if there's any way to describe it necessarily. It is definitely not easy. For me personally, it's not something, and I'm going to say not even for me personally, I don't think anybody necessarily plans to be a teenage mom. My situation is just really unique. And it helped me to be a better mom and to try my best to have a better line of communication with my children. Because I feel like that's kind of a huge piece of me being a teenage mom. Just basically went from being like the good Christian girl version until I make one mistake and I feel like everybody around me was making huge mistakes in middle school. So everybody was getting suspended. Everybody was getting always like the perfect church girl that, you know, won all the awards. I was never a student athlete, but I was always known for being really, really smart. So anybody and everybody knew like I'm the academic girl, but I never played any sports or anything like that. And just kind of one bad mistake. And I tried my best to kind of put it out in my head that I didn't just have sex, and let me just make sure everybody just forgets it, including myself. I tried for days to ignore that it ever happened. I tried to basically ignore everybody, not answer from my friends when they would like call my house phone. It was just something that I was like internally so ashamed of. And then 3.5 months later, I started getting really, really sick and literally have forgot all about it that day happened. Like when I say mentally, we have a ability to put trauma like so far in the back of our minds that I honestly, I really even forgot that day. Like it was literally just, as a 13-year-old, it was probably like literally 4 minutes of my life, and I really forgot all about that it happened. And I went to the doctors with my dad, and they said that I was definitely pregnant. So at that point, I had no idea really what that meant, honestly, because I was just so young. I was 13 at that time. So I actually had Monte when I was 14 years old, but I was 13 when I got pregnant. And again, I really didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what was ahead of me. I knew that all of a sudden, everybody was like showing up at the house. Everybody was having all of these phone calls. Like it was kind of like emergency meeting. Ebony has done something. So surprising to everybody, because again, I wasn't ever that child. And I remember having a few family meetings on what was going to happen and so forth. And honestly, I even to this day remember kind of being like zoned out a little bit. Like instead of thinking about kind of what was being said in the meeting, I feel like because of the way I know my mind works now, I was pretty much more like, why are these people here? Like, why is she in the meeting? Like, why is that? Why are you a part of the meeting? Like, why are you determining my life? Like, I feel like looking back at it, that's pretty much how my mind was a little bit. And now that kind of helps me internalize how I parent and how my children may look at things when I'm speaking with them and when I'm obviously disciplining them for certain things. But looking back on it, like I said, again, I really was not even focused on like they were talking about bringing up abortion, bringing up just all kind of different things like what I should do and how we should move forward. And again, I really wasn't even focused on moving forward. I was just focused on like, why are these the people that are determining now what I do with my life? Like I really had that, not say rebellious kind of thought process to be a 13-year-old, but for the first time, I was kind of like, okay, you guys don't tell me what to do in this situation, like about, how I feel. They just automatically just assume that, in this day and age, like this is what you do. Cause you got to think this was back when it wasn't popular to be a teenage mom. Like this is when something like that happens, your parents will ship you off to another state with a family member. Somebody else will raise your baby. They'll ship you back after you have the baby. Like it never happened. Like those were the days where this was like something that was unheard of. It was almost like a stain on your family a little bit. So just to fast forward, maybe like a few weeks later, my mom had like kind of a personal one-on-one conversation with me. And in that conversation, she pretty much at that time almost kind of told me that in so many words, that pretty much I wasn't going to be anybody if I proceeded, that I wasn't going to graduate high school, no man was going to want me, no friends was going to want to hang with me. I was just basically like, this was the end. And again, looking back at it now, I know that the times that it was, that was possibly all she knew. So I don't necessarily fault her at this stage in my life for having that conversation with me, because I know that that's kind of what happened back then. Like I have to associate my situation with also the time that this all occurred and how the world was kind of structured back then, which is very different than now. But at that time, I pretty much, again, just got in a mindset where I was like, well, why is it that nobody will like me just because I made a mistake? Like, I have 3 girlfriends right now that's been punished and they haven't even been to school all month. Like, I think my mind just went to a whole different, like, wait a minute. I've been a straight A student all this time. I've been winning all the awards at church. I'm basically like Stop, Shop, and Save Academic Child of the Year. Like I've done everything perfect. And you mean to tell me it's over like right now? Like that's it for me? Yeah. So I feel like that's where my mind frame went in. And for anybody that went and purchased my book, The Fragrance of a Resilient Woman, I actually talk about in the book that if that conversation never happened, thankfully I didn't have a copy of my book. Yes. Like if that conversation never happened, the truth of the matter is I may have decided to abort at that time. Because it really may have been possibly something that was on the table. But again, just that mental state of somebody telling you like, and you revisiting, I'm never going to be anybody. Nobody's going to want me. Nobody's going to want to hang with me. Like the rebellious side of me, I guess, just kicked in again. And I was like, that can't be true. Like, I'm going to prove all of these people wrong now. And now in that exact moment, like I feel like literally in that exact moment before I left off the table and before I stood up, I immediately went into revenge mode. Like, let me show, I'm going to teach them all. Like, I'm going to show them all. And then it pretty much kind of was go time from there because I wasn't focused on anything but proving everybody wrong.
Wow. So from feeling like you was in that revenge mode and moving forward, how did you feel having a mother of 2 kids at the age of 19, 20?
Yep. So by the time I was 19, I had my second child with the same person. So again, just being teenage parents, I feel like we both were just trying to navigate through it a little bit. And it wasn't necessarily on us on how we wanted things to flow. So again, even with my current situation and relationship with my boy's father, I always even tell my boys that I never allow them to like, they can express how they feel about whatever is happening, but I never condone them being disrespectful towards him and I never try to say anything that kind of talks about our past and kind of what we went through. And honestly, until Monte really got into psychology in college, it was definitely something I really never talked about. Like it was kind of almost an unspoken thing at our home. Like I never really discussed anything about that part of my life at all. But I'm glad that I'm a little more comfortable with speaking about it now because, again, it was just a struggle. Like we were both kids. He went to my middle school, so it's not like he was super older. He was a kid also. I know that he probably at that time, and even possibly now, may have tons of regrets and kind of emotions and things that may be going on with him towards me. And I've never heard him say that, but I do know that he dropped out of high school in order to work. So anybody that knows him knows that he's always worked. And it was pretty much to provide because it's like also as a young man, then you kind of go into provide mode a little bit. Like I need to make sure that these kids now have food, that they have diapers, that they have, everything that they need. And now that I'm in revenge mode and he's in work mode, I pretty much was, always still going to school, always just making sure I attended any dances, prom. Like I wanted to be a normal kid. Like I didn't want to any of this to affect my world. I wanted to pretty much live in 2 different worlds almost a little bit. So what I did was in order to create these 2 separate worlds at that time, I was living in East Baltimore City and I decided to go to high school in West Baltimore City. And if you're from Baltimore, you know that East side and West are like 2 different worlds, right? So nobody was going to know my life over here if I went over there. So in my mind, as a 14, 15-year-old going into high school, because when I had Monte, I was finishing up my 8th grade year. So at 8th grade graduation, I was probably 7 months pregnant. So just imagine how embarrassing that felt. And everybody was pretty much still trying to talk to me about it. And I was kind of like, look, guys, I'm embarrassed enough. Like, I don't want to really talk about this here. You know what I'm saying? But I feel like nobody ever thinks about how the person feels. They always just want to reflect their judgment on you. But nobody took a moment to even think about like this girl, like does she feel about the situation? Like, do you think I don't feel embarrassed sitting here? Do you not think that I see everybody staring at me? Everybody's parents staring at me. Parents are possibly telling their children not to hang with me and so forth. Like all of a sudden I've transformed to this horrible person, like all of a sudden, and nobody talked to me about it. So that was a huge piece of it also. But again, just going into high school, with one child. And by the time I come out of high school, we decided to pretty much like put the white noise of our family and friends aside and try to make it work. And we really fought hard to make it work. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like we did everything to try to keep it together. And again, it really necessarily wasn't even us. Like, I always say that in the midst of us trying to make it work is when I got pregnant with my second child, Martise. Um, and that didn't last long. Once I got pregnant again, we knew it was probably over. But long story short, once we tried to pretty much like figure out this whole like how do we be teen moms, how do teen parents, how do we become successful, how do we try to navigate and finish high school and work and daycare and just all of these things on top of our family pretty much almost doing everything that they could to make it harder for us. Like, it was kind of, again, the times then where, because it was rebellious of me to say I'm gonna proceed with this pregnancy. So the whole time I'm saying I'm gonna show everybody, and the whole time they're saying, "Oh, I'm gonna show her." So that's kind of how it happened a little bit. Where every time I tried to take one step forward, it was actually people in place, like doing everything they could to prevent me from being successful. So it wasn't even necessarily that I was just naturally having obstacles a little bit. It was the people going out of their way to make sure they prove to me that I'm making a horrible decision and I'm going to regret it, basically.
That's tough.
So with you saying that, one, was there anyone, and if so, who was the first person to actually come to you and say, okay, let me hear your, like, how do you feel about everything you're going through? You're going through a lot. You're obviously in sixth, seventh grade, pregnant after a certain amount of months. Obviously, you're starting to show in class. You're still attending all of the school events. So was there anyone that did come to your comfort or even sit you down and really like try to understand your viewpoint of things?
So pretty much no. Like today, I can't think of anybody that ever like really attempted to get to know who I was as a person. Like, obviously, I'm growing up now. I'm a mother, so I'm not just that seventh grader anymore. I'm not just that eighth grader anymore. I'm now a parent. So nobody ever, like even to this day, tried to sit down and talk to me about it. But I will say eventually, once I started really going through some things and kind of needed a little support, my grandmother was definitely that person that no matter what, she was never judgmental. She was never like, no matter what, it could be like 1 a.m. and God knows the reason why I'm coming and knocking at her door at 1 a.m. And she would literally just open it, not ask me anything, make sure Monte, had a blanket, make sure I had a pillow, and then we just knew that we had a safe place to sleep. But for the most part, I never really remember anybody kind of trying to figure out what was happening with me or what my thoughts are. I feel like more than anything, because I started really becoming this woman that was a child. And now I started working. I'm going to school. I always got my baby on my hip. He's always like clean and, well kept and so forth. I actually, when I was in high school, before right between that summer kind of my eighth grade and ninth grade year, because Monte was born in November. So, school started back then in September. So right between that time of say September and November, I went to a school in Baltimore City for pregnant girls. And to me, that was a really huge piece of kind of bringing a little bit of motherhood full circle, because I took well advantage of the opportunity that was there. And that school is actually now shut down, unfortunately. But I started taking parenting classes. I started taking classes after school to learn how to feed my baby, how to wash my baby, like not necessarily just winging this thing. I wanted to know a technique, like how do I hold him properly? You know what I'm saying? How do I carry him properly? It's just like I took it very, very seriously. Like as a mom, it was not a joke for me if I was going to bring this life into the world. It became like my 100% duty to make sure like I take my level of perfection even to the next level, because now I have a whole life staring back at me, and I want to make sure that I even clean his nose properly. Like I want to make sure, like, what's the technique to clean this little baby's nose? Like, tell me everything that I need to know. So the parenting classes and so forth were like huge for me to then kind of venture off into normal high school. But again, once I got there, I didn't want anybody to know that I was a mom.
With all of that happening, I would really just speak on a little bit like how I know you said it wasn't a lot of support there for you at all. So how was it being 13 or 14 years old and you having to go to your grandmom's house, and your mom just basically not being there, not supporting you, basically telling you you can't be in the house anymore? Like, put yourself in your shoes right now at 13 or 14, and what goes through your head when you basically the one person who you're relying on, your mom, or the one person who you think at least is going to be a little bit compassionate about the situation, is basically your biggest troll at that point.
I mean, my mindset was kind of all over the place back then. Like that, now that I'm older, I look at it a little different and I don't really fault her or hold her accountable, even though I'm not going to lie and say that it has created, even as an adult, like not the mother-daughter relationship that I see my other friends and so forth have, because it took us so long to even like get there. And again, if she was interviewed, she would probably have another account on how she felt. And it's not even really just her. I was raised in a 2-parent home. So I had siblings and so forth. Like, we were that protege family, like in the community. And now all of a sudden, one of the daughters is pregnant. So she was just like the usher boy at the church. We were really heavy again in our fraternity and so forth. Just looking back at it, but I mean, what it is what transpired. And in that, it wasn't necessarily that she put me out. I don't remember it that way. I just remember it being too much of a volatile situation. And now I have a baby. So basically the anger towards me had grown so much that, I mean, even when I tried to work, she would pretty much like give me a hard time to have a job after school. And I'm like, well, I have to feed the baby now. I have to have money, you know what I'm saying? And it's already bad enough that I'm only 14. So there's not many places I can work. So now I'm working at like the local McDonald's, the local grocery store. I can remember even when I worked at McDonald's, I don't think I ever had a check that was over $100. Like, all of my checks are like right at like $97.10 or like $95.35. And I was catching 4 buses to get to this McDonald's, because just so happened at the school, I heard that they were having like open interviews. If anybody's seen, like, you just show up and they pretty much will hire you.
Right.
So I'm like, bam, I gotta show up. You know what I'm saying? I need to get there. But it was like way away from my house. So I caught 4 buses there. They hired me on the spot. And after school, I was pretty much like trying to make it work. But again, when I got back home, it was so volatile. And then my parents at that time had put a curfew in place, which obviously in my mind, that's just another kind of stipulation. Now I got to jump this hump because I never had a curfew. They know that I have to get out of school, which is across town. Right. I got to catch 2 buses to get there. Now I got to catch 4 buses to get back to McDonald's. So obviously, if somebody can come pick me up, and then I can meet the curfew. But of course, nobody was going to do that. They were going to prove me wrong. So now I got to catch 4 buses back home, and one of those stops was picking up Monte, even from, the babysitter. So now I got to pick him up. Then pretty much from once I pick him up, I have to walk back home, and sometimes that was like 15 minutes away. By then it was probably like 10 p.m. at night. It's dark. I shouldn't even be out there, 14 years old, 15-year-old with a baby, pushing them in the pitch dark at 10 p.m., going through back roads, everything, just in Baltimore City, just trying to meet this curfew. And sometimes I would get home, and if I'm even 5 minutes late, they would have the door locked. So I'm banging on the door. I hear everybody in the house, but I have not made curfew, so nobody's going to answer the door. So that's kind of how I started landing at my grandmother's house. But my grandmother also lived about maybe a 35-minute walk from my parents' house. So now it's 10 p.m. Nobody's opening the door. And this is like a routine thing, because it was hard for me to make curfew. And I kept on being like, hey, y'all, I'm just trying to work. But nobody really cared about that. Because again, when your mindset, and again, just to go back to the whole mental health conversation, when your mind is to hurt somebody, you're not necessarily thinking of what you can do to help them. Now your mind is kind of like, I'm going to show you because you defied what I said, or not even had you. You want to be in a situation? Now I'm going to show you what this situation entails, like for real, for real. You want to be an adult? This is what an adult has to do. So that's how I see it, as if, now looking back on it, how they were coming towards me. But it still is, I mean, the facts is the facts. I could not make it back there on time. So I get there 5 minutes late. I'm knocking on the door, nobody answer. And it started becoming a routine where if I go and I just I ring the bell twice, nobody answer, I just take my stroller and start pushing it to my grandmother's. By the time I got there, it was just like midnight.
Do you feel like this was a form of them showing you tough love? Kind of like maybe that's all they knew. Like that's the form of parenting that they knew. Is that how you feel?
I mean, at this point, looking back, I definitely feel like it's tough love. But back then it didn't feel like tough love at all. It felt like these people hate me. Like, I'm not gonna lie. It felt like, yeah, it literally felt like nobody's helping me. I'm out here all alone. And now y'all are making me madder. And now I'm gonna go harder. And now I'm not going to, now I have to leave this house because I can't function here with a child. So again, now I understand that their top priority in their state of mind was kind of like to protect their reputation. And it could have been just a lot of things that they were trying to protect at this time. But in my mind, I'm like, no, but I got to protect my child now, so that's what comes first. So now if I come in and say, even like the next day, if I didn't have to work and I come in from school and I had not been let in the day before, now we may have been arguing and cursing and just, like I said, just volatile things that were happening. And now I have this little 1-2 month old, and I'm like, and now I go upstairs in my room and I'm like, but this can't happen. Like, it's no way that this is what I envision if I decide to do this. Like, I don't want to raise a child like in this environment. And I knew it was just very different of an environment if I was just to go with my grandmother. So necessarily, I didn't get put out. I kind of just made a decision that I can't come back here anymore.
Right. So now, after having the swing of things and being a mother of two, what would you say was the toughest adversity between the ages of 20 to 30 within that 10-year span?
So the toughest thing was probably, I guess, just getting settled on who I am as a person a little bit and how I want to navigate through this, because I feel like a lot of things at that point, almost everything I was doing just was for my boys at that point. I don't think I was like making a decision at all to have anything to do with me. So everything I did was just based off of, okay, say I had 5 options, because again, I'm still very young. When I moved out my parents' house at that time and made the decision, I had just turned 14. And I've never lived back there ever again. So just imagine I'm 14 now with a child, and now I don't live at home. So my grandmother created that safe place for me. And obviously she didn't make me pay bills, but she also like didn't give me an allowance or anything. So now I have to figure this thing out a little bit. So now I have peace a little more. And I know I have a safe place and a safe environment. But now I still have to get to like, what do I do next? Like, I need to do something to make myself successful. In the meantime, also maintaining my innocence while I'm at high school, because I don't want anybody here to know that I'm a parent. So I would also keep that very private. And at school, I pretty much tried to still be a regular child. Is that like just still I am a regular child, but I wanted to make it known that I was a regular kid there. So I still wanted to just show up again when they had dances, when they had proms, when they had pep rally, anything. Wow. I still tried to be there. But looking back on it, when I told some of my friends, because they was like, they never remember me like staying at ball games or anything. So if it was during the school day, I was there. But the reason why I never was able to stay at anything, because I had to get Monte from daycare and I had to catch 2 more buses back over across town to pick him up. So I could play, the whole time. And then by the time everybody's like, hey, we headed over to the field for the pep rally. And I'm like, all right, y'all, I got here back home, and not really staying. But I know once I leave that, and it was kind of like, again, it just takes you all back to that mental state of like literally almost creating 2 different worlds for myself. Like here at school, I could be a kid and nobody there knew that when I left there, I was going straight home to a newborn baby, like everything that entails. Like I may not have slept that night. He may have been up. He may have been sick. Sometimes I had to run him to the doctors and so forth. The only person that did know that I was a mother was my principal, because I had no other choice but to tell him. Somebody had to know in case there was an emergency. And I always thank God for my principal, because when I first met with him to be reinstated into high school from having Monte, I pretty much privately told him that I was a mom and that I would definitely appreciate if no one knew this information. But I have to reveal this to you because daycare may call. Like I have my school phone number, the office number is on the emergency contact because that's where I'm at all day. You know what I'm saying? So it's like if my child has an ear infection or anything comes up or emergency and you need me, you got to think this was when cell phones didn't exist. So the only way you can find me is at school. I may have had a little pager or something like a beeper, but I didn't have a cell phone. And nobody had a cell phone. So you had to call my school to find me. And a lot of times when it was an emergency, the daycare would call the school and my principal would let me. And I will say, let me piggyback. That was probably the first person that pretty much stepped up to help me a little bit, because he would definitely let me hook school. Like, and he's on record a little bit in his history with helping students, but it's probably statute of limitations now. So he's not a principal anymore. He won't get in trouble. But he would definitely kind of call me down to the office, call me in his office and say, Ebony, the daycare is saying they have to close early. It's no water at the daycare or anything. Go get your son. So he would pretty much allow me to make up work and kind of excuse those classes for me and make up something that I had to do. And then he would let me go. And then I would have to catch 2 buses, go pick him up and hurry up and get there, just like any other parent that was probably in their 30s, go pick my kid up and make sure he was back, in a comfort place where he had water and clothes and whatever the emergency may be. Again, even if I had to take him to the doctor's, a dentist appointment, anything, I had to run and pick him up.
Wow. Okay, let's jump ahead a little bit. 2005, that's when you initially got into the real estate game?
Mm-hmm.
And how did that come about?
So a little bit before then, maybe a few months after you were born. So this was like late 1997. I had put myself on a list for Section 8 housing vouchers. Again, being back and forth and kind of always being locked out, I wanted to find a place where I could secure to have a home for us. But again, I'm 14 years old, so obviously I'm not about to get Section 8 housing vouchers. But somebody told me that it was like a long waiting list. So they were like, go put your name on the list and, they'll probably eventually call you and try to work something out, especially that you're a mom. So I'm like, okay. So after school, I go downtown, I fill out all the papers. Again, I'm 14 years old. I have my little school ID I take down there and I fill everything out and never even really think about it again. And during that process of being locked out, before I actually committed to staying at my grandmother's house, Monte and I was actually pretty much homeless for a good time. Like one of my cousins had a apartment and I pretty much would have like 3 or 4 trash bags with me that she would let me keep at her house while we went back and forth to school and while I took him to daycare. But every day I would catch the bus to her house, go into the trash bags, wash clothes in there, put everything back in the trash bag so we can have clean clothes. So I had like 2 trash bags of clean clothes, like 2 trash bags of our dirty clothes. And then she would let me kind of keep them in like the corner of her living room. And a lot of times, one of my friends at the time, her parents were a little older. So her parents were probably almost like 60 when we were in high school. So they were a lot more like lenient with her and so forth. And I was just like, wait a minute, you can do everything, girl. You can go to all the parties, you can do everything. And they pretty much making it seem like I'm the worst person ever. And I can't even do nothing. So a lot of times Monte and I would spend time at her house. And I would never kind of reveal to her even what I was going through. It's just similar to like any other kid that's hanging at their friend's house. It's just now I got a baby with me. So say after school, I would go to my cousin's house, get fresh clothes for Monte, get fresh clothes for me. We would wash up, change clothes, everything. I had in my book bag or my purse, like extra clothes, his baby bag and all of that stuff with all his milk, everything in there. And then I would go to my friend's house and then we would just hang out. So sometimes we would just be on her front steps and then Monte would just be running around. Like it was just like a regular day after school. And then I would go back the next day, get clean clothes. And sometimes my friend would be like, girl, it's late, just stay here. And when she said that, I was just like, oh yes, we want to stay here because we didn't have a place to go necessarily. It was just like in between either my cousins, my grandmother's, or my friend's house, we would just kind of stay. So sometimes I would even purposely kind of hang out with her where it was late on a school night. And she would pretty much be like, oh, you can stay here because at that time, Monte's daycare wasn't far from her house. So it was like a little bit easier for me if I did stay from her house, but I didn't want to reveal that I pretty much didn't have a place to go at that time. So fast forward, once I put my name on the list, pretty much around, I believe it was like 2001 or so, like not that far after I graduated from high school, I received a phone call that my name was coming up on the list. So now I'm almost like 18 years old and what was that, 97 through 2001, my name is now up on the list. So now I possibly can have a house. So exactly. So all that time, clearly I forgot all about that. And I was just trying to make it work after that. So one of the rules were in order to obtain the program, you had to at least have lived in a non-program home for at least 1 year and paid your rent on time. So at that point, what I did was I wasn't quite 18 yet, but I was about to come up on my 18th birthday and I wanted to go sign a lease with a local apartment complex, but I wasn't 18. So it's like the main thing that kept coming up in my life is just I wasn't old enough. Like that's why I just feel like people don't understand how important age is because say I'm working and I'm trying to hold on to a little bit of money. Monte's dad is working. He has a little bit of money now. And say, you know, now I can file my little taxes and I have a dependent, you know what I'm saying? So now even let's say I got like $1,200 back at taxes and I want to be able to put like $300 aside. Like, even if I do that for 4 years straight and turn around and I'm like, all right, well, between putting money aside from my check and my taxes, now I turn around and I'm like 17 and I have $5,000. But I'm still not old enough. Like, you can't sign a contract, you know what I'm saying? So no matter what, I'm in a situation where I'm kind of like stuck. Like my age is just in the way completely. So they finally allowed me, one of the ladies at the front desk, she pretty much was like, I know you're not 18 yet. You can't sign the BGE documents for gas and electric. Can't do any of this stuff yet. So I pretty much brought my dad with me on the next appointment. And I was like, I don't want you to co-sign, but I want you to vouch that I am like a serious person. Like I'm a good person. I have money. You know, I'm not going to like not pay. Like, let me sign the contract. So she basically said I can fill everything out, but she couldn't put it in the system at least until like 14 days before my 18th birthday. But I still couldn't get like gas and electric yet. So I was like, fine, at least let me get the apartment. I'll come back here as soon as I turn 18 and sign the gas and electric papers. So that's what they pretty much allowed me to do. So I moved into that apartment maybe like 2 days after my 18th birthday. Because I was so young and didn't have anything yet, like I didn't have a credit card yet or anything, they made me pay a triple security deposit. So I had to pay 2 security deposits up front and 1 security deposit in my rent every month. And I think my rent was probably maybe $650 at that time. But again, that was like everything I had. Like that was everything. That was definitely way less than, way more than what McDonald's was giving me. So then I had to transfer from McDonald's to a local grocery store that was paying me a little more. Because I needed to make my rent. So once I pretty much lived there for 12 months, I was able to go back to the program and let them know like, hey, I paid my rent every month for 12 months. So what I would do is, again, I just kicked into like mother mode and I'm still trying to be like a teenager a little bit and still be all cool with my friends. But behind the scenes, I have to make this quota to make 12 months of payment for me and my son to get a house. So next thing you know, I just pretty much was starting to, every time I got paid, I would pay my rent like 2 or 3 months in advance to help me keep caught up on other things like my car insurance. And now cell phones were out, so I had a little cell phone bill. But back then you had to put the minutes on in. So every time I turn around, I need more minutes in order to like call daycare and so forth. So I feel like I was like burning minutes like crazy. So I've gotten a habit of paying bills ahead of time. So now I'm 18 years old, and when that little tax check come and it's $1,200, I would pretty much pay, maybe 2 months of rent, and then if I already had some money in my savings account from my monthly check, from working at the grocery store, then I would pretty much say if my gas and electric bill was like $115, I would try to pay it for 3 months. But instead of like, once I pay it for 3 months, instead of backing off of it, I will pay it like I had a bill. You know what I'm saying? So next thing you know, my 12-month lease was pretty much paid off, and I had only lived there like 7 months. So then I could go back to the program and tell them like, hey, I've lived in this place and I've paid 12 months of rent. Can I get in the program or whatever? So they allowed me to come back to the program, and I pretty much started meeting like a coordinator for like teenage moms in like downtown Baltimore. We would get on these vans and they would take us all the way out somewhere, like way past Harford County, Howard County, everywhere, to place us in these homes pretty much. But the way it was set up is that you could rent the home for 12 months, but then you had the ability to purchase the home. So that's kind of how I got into the mindset of like, wait a minute, I gotta rent another 12 months. Like I just did all this hard work and got all this rent paid in here. Like, wait a minute, how much it cost to buy this place? So now my mindset started getting into like, well, if I could pay $700 a month at that time, that's probably a place that's probably 80 or 90,000, and I'm already living in Baltimore City, so it's tons of like townhomes and stuff around here for like 100,000 and under. So I'm pretty much not going to be far from what I was already paying. And instead of doing that other 12 months in the program, now I can buy. So I end up never utilizing the program. And at the age of 18, I went in my first contract to purchase. I end up not moving forward with that property after we had inspections and so forth. But at the age of 21, I actually finalized and purchased my first property in Baltimore.
Wow. All of that before the age of 21.
I was just thinking that, like, we ain't even really dive into the superstar you is now. We still in the early age.
This is all before 21.
So, before we even get any further, did you feel like signing that lease at 18, actually having your own place, I mean, which is very tough nowadays and even back then, like, do you feel like that was a big step in you moving forward to where you are today?
Yeah, that was actually a huge step because it just gave me a piece of like, not necessarily like a average child would have the piece of freedom a little bit, but because I'm a mom, I was just more thinking of like, we have a place to sleep. Like I'm so tired of lugging these bags everywhere. I'm so tired of like having to go from place to place. And even when I was staying at my grandmother's house, she didn't necessarily have a room for me to sleep in. So if you ever seen like in an East Baltimore home where it's like these old cellar basements where all the pipes are and all that stuff, that's pretty much where we slept at. Like I went to like a used furniture place and got Monte like a bed frame that was like a sports car or something. Mm-hmm. Got like a mattress put in there so he can have a place to sleep. And I was pretty much just sleeping on a mattress that my grandmother had put like on some crates. But we were like, Monte's bed was like right beside the wash machine, right beside the HVAC system. Like it wasn't like a room. So if anything, I was just happy to finally get out the cellar per se, and to pretty much like, even if I could be in like the smallest one bedroom, if it had like a fridge, a kitchen, a bed, and a toilet, like I'm ready to just get out of there and be able to get somewhere where I feel like, my child is, in a better situation now.
So with all of that happening at 21, you ended up getting your real estate license in 2014. But before that, you were working as a high school nurse, correct?
Right. So I was working, I had went to nursing school, kind of right after high school. I didn't love nursing and I didn't love nursing school, but everybody else thought I was really, really good at it because clearly I mainly worked in pediatrics or as a school nurse. And I always loved to learn because again, I never was an athlete. I was always just really good with academics and catching on to things quick and just loved to learn. And I was always told, again, it was kind of like one of those theories back in the day where like, I feel like every female graduated and just went into nursing. Like it was just like a thing. You never even thought about it. Yeah, it's like, I feel like we never even, like nobody put nothing else in our head that we can do anything else but like nursing. Like you're supposed to graduate and put on scrubs. Like no matter what you do, if you walking around in scrubs and a name badge, then you doing something. You know what I'm saying? So
The fellas even starting to get with the scrubs these
yeah,
days.
yeah, everybody's doing something in nursing. So I pretty much again just fell right into like, what's something I can do to just get some money quickly that I know is a guaranteed job and so forth. So what I did was I signed myself up for nursing school. And even with that, I had went to like a few family members to pretty much get some advice on student loans. I had never taken out a student loan before. But some of my other friends were working at the hospital, but they weren't working in like a certified capacity. They may have just been like doing transport, a dietary or something like that. So they may have been in scrubs, but they weren't actually like they didn't attend a trade school. So then I tried to think a little further than that and was like, listen, I'm good at school. You know what I'm saying? I can probably knock these 2 years out the box and then literally be working, learn actually where I have a title for myself, takes my nursing boards, pass, and now I have like the actual like career in place. So now I won't just, and I tried it. I worked dietary at the hospital for like maybe a week or so. It was like this overnight shift. By then I had 2 kids, so I was just like, I can't do it. Um, and the main reason that I wasn't able, like once I came in one night after like my third night working there, and like trying to go to school all day, working dietary, coming in, I remember like feeding Martise, and the next thing you know, my arm was like, and I just literally was about to fall asleep, and it just scared the crap out of me that I almost like hurt my child because I fell asleep like trying to feed him. And now I'm like, wait a minute, Ebony, you can't, this can't work. Like you have to be able to get something more stable and not this craziness again.
Right.
So then I decided to sign myself up to nursing school, and nobody agreed with it. Everybody that I told I wanted to take out student loans, everybody told me I should not take out student loans. It was going to be the worst thing ever. You don't want to get yourself caught up in these loans and this, that, and the other. But I was good at paying bills. I had already been paying bills a little bit on my own. I wasn't on a program or anything at that time. I already had established the credit. Not that far after my 19th birthday, I saved up maybe like $7,000 in my savings account because I was good at saving. I really didn't go anywhere. I just hung with Monte and I just hung with them. So when I got off for work, I was always so like adamant about not doing anything with friends because I thought I was taking away so much time from them by going to school and work. So now when I got off, I was like, what can we do? You know what I'm saying? Like, what y'all trying to do? So I would like literally put them in the car, take them to Ocean City, take them to Atlantic City, like just random, like we just hanging. So anybody that knew me was definitely like, I mean, she always got some kids with her because I pretty much, if I wasn't working or in class, I pretty much had them with me at all times. And I never ever asked anybody to watch them. I always was paying for like an actual like daycare center to watch them. So it was costing me so much money to do that. And I was splitting it with dad at the time. And by the time a few months after I turned 19, I actually went and purchased my first car all cash. I think it cost me like $3,000 cash. You couldn't tell me nothing. I walked in there with my 3,000 and I was 19 years old. And I was pretty much like, yup, because I knew I couldn't have a car payment. I had daycare, so there's no way I could have a car payment.
Right.
And at that time, after I got the car and now I had me like some real certified wheels, I started looking for another job and left the grocery store and I started working at a bank. And that's when things really, really changed because I started learning about credit cards. It wasn't like the standard, like where you go to the bank and they just take your money and deposit it. You know, it was actually like corporate. It was like where you go in to learn how credit cards work. Like we were getting like training and so forth on debt collection and interest rates, APRs. It was just kind of all type balance transfers. I mean, it was all kind of information coming at me, and I was already good at saving and paying my bills. So now I'm pretty much like, oh, I can't handle nursing school. Like I'm learning all of this even more over here. But again, everybody just looking at me as like that kid because nobody really got to know me during that time. Everybody just kind of tossed me away and just was seeing me come and go with my babies on my shoulder and was like, eh. So I pretty much was like, all right, I'm gonna sign up for nursing school, out the loans myself, signed all the papers. They approved me because I already kind of had a little credit card. So my credit was in decent shape enough to get approved. And then I started going to nursing school. And to me, that was also a game changer because now I'm out of that environment of like that mentality of the failure a little bit. And now I'm around grown women. I mean, all types of different people coming from everywhere to the school to learn, everything. So I'm running into all kind of personalities. I'm having like a sisterhood with some of these girls that I never had ever before. And I always jokingly tell my daughters that in nursing school you have to learn on each other. So they always like, well, how do you learn how to draw blood? I'm like, yeah, do it on each other. Like they like, how do you give shots? I'm like, you have to do it on each other. Like you have to put the needles all like you do clinicals on each other. So we created like a little bond a little bit. I was helping them get through it. They was helping me get through it. If they failed phlebotomy once or twice and they needed to stick somebody else, I would volunteer. Like you can come stick me, get your grade, draw my blood again. They would bruise me all up and stick it all in the wrong, and I would still kind of help them out a little bit. But that was pretty much the turning point of like, now I have a title, now I have a career, and now I have like some real, like once I graduate there, I can go apply and I have like a real title. I'm not just looking for random jobs. And I immediately went into pediatrics because I had 2 kids already. So nobody else wanted to go in pediatrics. That was like almost a no-brainer for me just to work with the kids. And then like Monte said, I had gotten to being a school nurse, which I love that also. That was working with, the high school kids. So I'm literally a kid working as a school nurse at the high school because I'm probably like 21 at that time. And it was probably kids there that were 21. So they probably was looking at me like, wait a minute. Yeah, but that was pretty cool.
So at this point, you're 21 years old. You finally getting things off the ground, got a career as a nurse in nursing school, and you already spoke that you tell the girls about nursing. I have 2 younger sisters. So you are nursing, your career is going well, you finally thinking, okay, things are going good. And you end up having to be laid off of work for a year. How did that come about? Where was your mindset at? What was your thought process when you realized like what laid off of work? Like how am I gonna like touch on a little bit on that?
Yeah, so probably once, and just in between that time, I end up getting married, um, had another child. So my first daughter is now here, and a little after her second birthday. And just FYI, I don't want to skip past that because remember, everybody said I wasn't going to have any friends. Nobody wanted me. I wasn't going to graduate high school. I wasn't going to do all of these things. And now I'm 23 now. I got married when I was 23. So now I'm a homeowner. I'm driving probably at this point like some of the fanciest cars around Baltimore because then I'm making money now. You know what I'm saying? So um I have my boys, now my kid, Montes now is going to one of the most prestigious private schools in Baltimore. And at that time, just in full transparency, I was putting his tuition like on a credit card every month. Like it was no way I could afford that private school. But I was still like, my son is getting the best education because now I'm deep into education. So I remember even once or twice he called me and was like, "Ma, they saying I can't come to practice because my bill not paid." So then I hurry up and where's another credit card? Pulled that out, paid that real quick, went over, did a balance transfer. Like working at the credit card company, I know how to work credit cards, so I didn't ever pay interest. So even if interest came in, I pretty much is smart enough, know how to, and they do charge you for balance transfers. But when you're in a situation, I'm like, wait a minute, let me transfer this over, go back to 0%, pay his tuition real fast, and then I'll be up again by next month and we'll be straight for the next 2 months. And then that only happened pretty much his freshman year. And I started learning how to also pay his tuition up front. So a lot of times by the time we got to like the second month of the semester, I had already paid his tuition in full. But now I'm on kind of like a roll. So everything that everybody told me I wasn't going to do, again, I'm just shoving it to them. And on top of it, I'm doing it like I know what I'm doing, but in a humble, I'm not even going to say anything. I'm going to just show y'all type of thing. So I'm never really talking about it, but now everybody sees that, oh my goodness, yes, Ebony's doing this now, and Ebony's doing that now a little bit. And I feel like the way that the devil attacks me a little bit is through my children. And because I'm in complete control of myself at all times, like I really feel like one thing I've mastered is being very intentional and very much in control over where I am, who I'm around, what I say, what I do. Like, again, just not trying to be perfection, but it's just now that mindset is in me. So I'm just kind of always very intentional about everything. So the devil attacks me through my children because that's what's most important to me. He doesn't have another way to come at me, because I mean, when you come now, I feel like, I'm just a shield. I can just block off anything mentally. And then once my baby girl, a little after her second birthday, she became ill. And that's just something, again, we talking about mental health, but even when it comes to, we touch a little bit on financial health, but physical health also, I mean, that's just something that's of our hands. So that just takes a mental toll on you, because no matter how much savings you have, no matter how much you think you're the master of financial literacy now, I have my nursing degree, I'm trying to do all these different things, but I can't control the fact that my daughter now is losing her health. So at that point, I pretty much, I always jokingly say I got fired on my day off, because that's really kind of like the truth a little bit. I really was like in a Craig situation from Fridays, because the doctors I was working with at that time were so humble, and they knew the kind of work ethic that I had, and I was so committed. I never took days off. I never took vacation. So once my daughter got sick, they actually together and donated me time. So some of the doctors donated me like a total of almost 3 weeks just for me to be off and stay at the hospital with my daughter. But one of my managers at the time, she didn't like that at all. She was just like, why is this little Black girl getting all this time donated to her? So what she did was she pretty much illegally fired me. And on my day off that I was able to be off because I had to donate the time, she left me a voicemail and was like, don't come back in. So now I'm kind of going through all of that. And at the same time, I all of a sudden don't have a job.
So at that point, what's next? Like, where you don't have a job.
What's your thought process at that? Like at that, after you got off that phone call, what would you say was your thought process now?
So honestly, my thought process went straight back into that 13-year-old mind. Like, oh, they think they can stop me by doing that? Like, wait a minute, you can't hold me down by saying I don't have a job, because I know I can easily go get another job. I got this certification, you know what I'm saying? I passed my boards, I have this title now. I've been working in nursing now for a little minute. So it's just like, okay, well, let me make sure my daughter is straight. But in the meantime, again, I always was really, really good at saving. So I never been into hand saying, I'm gonna tell you, I don't really buy myself anything unless anything designer, expensive. Like, it just never became something that was my thing. I'll easily just go to Walmart, give me a whole outfit, and I'm good to go. So every time I got paid, no matter what I was doing when I was paying bills, I was always setting money aside. Even if it wasn't for a specific reason, I was always kind of setting money aside. So once that came across to me and they told me not to come in anymore, obviously I wanted to work. Like, I didn't want to be fired. I wanted to actually, resolve this, see what's going on. I didn't know that it was going to last as long as it was going to last. I thought they was going to give my child some steroids. We're going to be out of there in 2 weeks and I could be back to work. But the truth of the matter is I probably had time. So I wasn't super, super stressed, but I did want to work. But nobody really knew that about me, because again, I was just always so private. So people were coming to me like, oh my goodness, I think they're hiring down in the hospital cafeteria if you're looking for work. And I was pretty much like, no, I'm good. You know what I'm saying? And my husband was actually obviously working at the time, handling everything for our family. So it wasn't necessarily like it was just my income. But we had obtained all of these things at that time, because once I was laid off, I believe Jerome and I had already bought our second piece of real estate, which was, I bought that property, I think, when I was 24 years old. And this was a $500,000 home that we got built from the ground up. Again, we got these cars, we got Escalades outside, we got all this other stuff, because now we are on a roll and I'm good with money. You know what I'm saying? I've learned all of this other stuff. So I'm good with this money and finance thing here. So everything that's coming in, I pretty much, can calculate and count every dime. There's nothing coming in here that we're not able to utilize and know exactly where our money went. but it still was a mental blow to you because I mean, you just get a call and now all of a sudden you can't come back to work, and I don't even really know why. But I did end up suing them and fighting it because she literally fired me on my day off. So I won that case, but I won it, I feel like 2 years later. So I pretty much had to utilize all my savings during that time to kind of suffice for just a little bit of everything. And it wasn't even necessarily household bills, because Jerome obviously stepped right in and made sure all of that was taken care of. But I don't think people thought about the expenses that come along with even having a child in a hospital. I think she ended up staying like probably close to 4 months straight without ever leaving. Like even just buying hospital food for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day, like my account was just dwindling down. So even like mentally, it may seem like, well, Ebony, what are you complaining about? At least you had the money to do that, where some people didn't. But when you in a situation and now you seeing all that you have again coming from where I came from, and I finally get some money saved, and I had that money saved honestly because I wanted to buy an actual daycare center. I wanted to start like a daycare center. So I was looking for like a place to have as a daycare center to help, because I was working in pediatrics and so forth, to help other teenage moms that needed daycare. So they would have a safe place for their child to be and not have to worry about, are they safe while they're at school and work and so forth. So now I'm in a mindset of now thinking that I'm such in a more than decent place than I need to be because I don't really buy anything. So let me try to give back. So that was kind of hurtful to me because that was all the money I had saved to try to achieve like a really big accomplishment that I thought was going to not only help another mother, but also kind of fulfill that void to kind of give back for all that I had gone through. And now my savings account is like depleting because I'm just like, okay, I gotta spend all of this money now. I have to handle things back at home. I have to just make sure everything is taken care of. Because my daughter is sick, and that ended up basically trickling all the way to, like Monte said, about 2014-ish, when I started getting into real estate to obtain my real estate license. Because at that point, I was probably still home caring for her, and that now was like 8 years had passed.
And how was that being a stay-at-home mom for those years?
I was off of it. So what they want is the information.
So where can people, like, how can people become a mentee of you? Like, how can they get in contact with you if they're interested in building wealth through real estate?
I was a different stay-at-home mom anyway. Like some people were stay-at-home moms. Like Monte, I was a stay-at-home mom that was running businesses from home also, like, because that was just like the entrepreneur in me, and I wanted to always be a business owner, and I really wasn't like a stay-at-home mom type of person. Because I was so good at multitasking too that I could pretty much still have my kids, spend time with them. I'm still at the school. I'm still I'm still at football. I'm at basketball. I'm at dance. Like I can move around my 24 hours that God gave me. I'm pretty like I'm utilizing every moment of my time. But I know that I still can possibly achieve something that I want to achieve. So even though I was a stay-at-home mom, I was like selling scarves. I knew how to make dresses because I could sew. When I went to the school for pregnant girls, I took a sewing class because I would make a lot of Monte's clothes back then because I couldn't afford to buy a lot of clothes. So even like the pillows in his crib and the bumper that goes around your crib and all of that stuff, I have like all these old photos that I used to make a lot of that stuff myself. So once I'm now a stay-at-home mom, I'm like, wait a minute, I have all these talents. You know what I'm saying? I taught myself how to do a little bit of everything. So now I'm making dresses for people. I'm making raven scarves. I'm selling them here and there. I'm pretty much starting to sell jewelry. I'm starting to sell shoes. Like I got a website up, like just trying to do a little bit of everything. And then I started like this event planning business. I started giving like New York bus trips. That was an opportunity to like take my kids up to New York, and then everybody paid me if I rent the bus, and then they go shopping. And then I would go up there on the shopping trips that I've thrown, and I wouldn't buy myself anything because I'm not a shopper. So it was like a perfect situation for me because I'm charging, like I would rent these coach buses, and say like the coach buses hold like 150 people, and I'm charging them $75 a head to come on the bus. And then we would ride up to New York. And I'm making probably like more than 50% profit that it costs to rent the bus. And I'm not spending any of it because I'm not a spender. So I might just get, maybe something to eat while I'm up there. but everybody's getting handbags and jewelry and, their wholesale stuff. And I'm coming back, with nothing but just the money I just made and to put back into my, so I'm a stay-at-home mom, but I'm also like trying to maneuver through this a little bit so that when this time comes that's over and that my daughter's back healthy again, that I can try to, not lose all that time. And in the meantime, again, I decided to go back to college as well as go back to real estate school. And I did that at the same time.
So how was that? Experience of going back to real estate school and then going back to school and then pursuing MBA, if I'm correct?
Yeah, so I first went back to community college because honestly, I felt like the nursing school that I went to was a 2-year degree, but it was pretty much more like a trade accelerated type of school program. So you didn't necessarily get like a formal degree from nursing school, but you could take your boards and be able to still work. And I don't even think they really have those kind of schools anymore, but they used to have it where different trades you can go. Say it typically was a 4-year college, you can go for this long accelerated day. Like I was literally there from like 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. most days, every single day for 2 years. And then again, you're able to take your boards and so forth. So once I started being able to save some of my money back again, I wanted to get back into real estate investing. And I'm like, I want to deep dive back into what I was trying to do originally and get the daycare center. So I'm still in that mind frame. And then Jerome had pretty much said to me that he thought that we should both get our real estate license. And I had never thought about becoming a real estate licensee. I just always was investment. Because again, I had the kids. I'm not thinking I can get back like full time in the shuffle of working, but investment is something different. Like you guys know, that's pretty much passive income. So I can get this started over here, make money, and then I can still do everything I need to over here. So that's how my mind kind of was set up then. And I'm probably I'm thinking 25, 26 at this time. And I'm pretty much like, let me try to also get my real estate license. So Jerome was pretty much like, well, I want to go get my license, but I'll only go if you go. So I'm like, oh, okay then. Well, I guess, I guess I gotta go. But I was already back in college, and now I have the kids, so I had enrolled back in CCBC to actually start the actual like true degree path. Because again, my nursing degree wasn't necessarily counted towards like a bachelor's degree or an associate's degree. Right. So I enrolled back in CCBC, and I saw a lot of people were transferring once they, finished their 2 years of community college. And I made it my business. I was like, I don't want to transfer. I want to graduate, like put a cap and gown on me. And I've been working hard. I want to walk across the stage with my kids in the audience. Like I'm not just want to transfer. So I actually graduated, I believe on the same day that Monte graduated from high school, or either the day before or something.
I think it was like a day apart.
I feel like I whipped off my cap. Yeah, I think I whipped off my cap and gown and then went and celebrated, your graduation. And again, just being kind of like the person that I am a little bit, like I graduated, but I don't even think I invited anybody. I think it was just us. We just went to the graduation, and then I just made it about him because it was really about him graduating high school and not necessarily me. But it was definitely a struggle. I would be trying to do my classwork and then log on to real estate, do my classwork, leave real quick, go to sports. All of my kids were student athletes. So Monte was probably playing 3 sports at the time. Martise was probably playing maybe 2 sports at the time. He's playing lacrosse and I think basketball. He was doing football too. So he was doing 3 sports. And Jules was definitely in dancing. Like I'm just moving all around after school. So during the daytime or either late at night, I would start trying to make sure I got all my assignments turned in. But thankfully I graduated from CCBC, my 2 years flat. I got in and out of there. And because now I was kind of in the mind frame of learning, and now I'm like, okay, I've pretty much mastered this college thing a little bit because I'm doing both at the same time, and it's becoming just a part of my regular schedule. I immediately went over to University of Maryland for my bachelor's in finance.
Okay. So is that where you got into the financial literacy, or where did that come about?
I really kind of started picking up like a ton of finance stuff. So I worked at the bank already, so I knew about a lot of things. I had never had bad credit. I had never been bad at saving. This is always something that I was able to easily do and kind of taught myself. And I started realizing that wasn't everybody's story. Like everybody's story was pretty much the exact opposite. Even if they got to a point where they started being good at savings, or now they had their credit scores up, they always were able to tell a story where, that it was really bad at one time and now they had to, clean it up and teach themselves and so forth. And I started being like, well, this is something that I know how to do. Like I pretty much almost taught myself this a little bit. And when Jules got sick, I created this budget book. So I had this black and white notebook that I would have with me, like next to my bills and stuff at all times. And I started writing down every bill we had each month, every expense, because now once I had lost my job, I wanted to really like track every penny. So this was like a system that I had created without even knowing I had created a system. Like I really just did it for my own purposes to be like, I need to make sure that my kids are able to, still maintain, be able to get food, pay this $500,000 house mortgage that we just purchased. Then we had already had another property prior to that we had flipped. And I was pretty much like, we got to be able to maintain this a little bit. So now I need to track every penny. So that was pretty much my mindset, that nothing should come to this house and we don't know where it went at. Like how some people say, like, they get paid and it's like, man, all of a sudden I only got a few $100s left. Like where the money and where the time go? Like I never wanted that to be me. So then I created this kind of budget system. And when I started doing my bachelor's in finance, we were doing these case studies. So I was really getting into the case studies. Sometimes they would ask us questions about like time value of money, retirement, assessing like financial institutions and things like that. And with all that I had going on, when I would come in late night to do my homework, I would really like engulf myself in some of these case studies. And then it started making me reevaluate everything that I had going on with my finances. And I actually thought at that time that we were doing so well. I'm like, oh, and most people looked at us as if we were doing really well at that time. But once I got my bachelor's in finance, it just pretty much took our finances to the next level because I was learning things that I didn't know. I was learning a lot of tricks. I was learning how investments work. I was learning how time value of money works. I was learning like the rule of 72, how to put money up. I was just learning so many different things through the case studies in my bachelor's degree. And then I would come home and everything I was learning, I was revamping our entire lives. So that was pretty much where things started transforming for us financially, kind of like to the next level, when I started really taking those finance classes really heavy.
Is this when you felt like you, is this basically when the Working Mom came about, or talk a little bit about your financial literacy business? How did you start that? What is your mission statement? Like, what is the Working Mom? How did it come about?
Yep. So once I started, basically, I got my real estate license. And my first year my goal was only to sell one house. So that's, again, I don't know why, again, just taking it back to that this is a mental health podcast, that I always surround myself around negative people that just were being negative. I don't even know why, because I feel like I never really surrounded myself around many people, period. Like I pretty much stayed to myself and just mainly with my kids and things like that. But I feel like the people that kind of slithered their way into my world just seem to not always be the most positive people. So it always kept me throughout my life, like not really having a lot of friends and almost kind of seeming like that loner that only pretty much hangs with her children, because I just couldn't take like that glass half empty type of people. So everybody was telling me it was just so hard to sell homes and real estate. And it was going to be so difficult, and they was licensed for all this time and really wasn't producing at all. And there's going to be so many fees and just like everything negative about it. So again, I go back to like, oh, I can show y'all like, oh, I can definitely sell a house. Like you mean to tell me I can't sell one house? Like, girl, I'm really superwoman around here. I can do 100 things at one time. So I could definitely sell a house. So then my mindset just got into like, my goal was to sell one house, and I'm gonna prove them wrong that I can sell one house my first year. And then I end up winning like top producer my first year. having like 3 million or so in sales volume. And I don't even really know where all of that came from. It's just like, I think my mindset was really just to help people versus like worrying about the commission check. So then I started realizing if you take the money out of it and you go in with a pure heart and you really have a goal to help, then the money will come without you even realizing it a little bit. So now my strategy end up being very different than everybody else's strategy. I see everybody else like handing out their business cards and like chasing people down and like cold calling and knocking on their doors and like harassing people almost. And I'm pretty much like a laid back, realtor that's pretty much like, let me know what I can do to help. That's pretty much how I am. And from that, I just started speaking to a lot of people that did not know what financial literacy were. I mean, now I'm getting calls, and I mean, to this day, sometimes I get over 100 calls a year from people that are just saying to me, like, my mom didn't teach me, her mom didn't teach her, her dad didn't. Like, I have no idea about credit cards, how this works. I just ran everything up. Like, I don't know pretty much what to do at all. Like, but I want to be a homeowner. And they would say, like, hey, Ebony, I got to get my kids out of this neighborhood. They've been shooting over here. I can't take it anymore. My kid can't go to this school, but they don't have the means to, even rent a house, more or less buy, because a lot of times the credit score requirements are a lot more brutal to rent than to buy. So it makes more sense like to obtain ownership than to try to keep constantly getting these rental properties. So then out of nowhere, I just created this Werking Mom, and I just started, I don't even know really where the name came from, but I'm pretty much at that point was a Werking Mom. Like, everything I did was like, I'm working, I'm moving this, that, and the other, but I'm 100% still in mom mode. Like, I'm the room mom at the school. I'm throwing all the parties. I'm doing Christmas party. I'm doing the decoration. Like, I'm doing everything. And then after that, I had my earbud in and I'm answering emails when I run out of there. I'm sitting in the car for 30 minutes and returning phone calls. Like, so it just became kind of Werking Mom a little bit. And I feel like the Werking Mom is a little bit of my alter ego, a little bit also. Like, I feel like when I'm in a broker real estate mode, that to me it's like a little more serious, and that's the serious side of me. But the Werking Mom is kind of where I can kind of like pat myself on the back a little bit and kind of, remove a tiny bit of the humbleness and kind of be proud of myself for all that I've done and all that I accomplished. So, you might see some, get out there, girl, and get it, like some more straight at you stuff if you follow that Werking Mom page. But then I kind of created the Werking Mom podcast as well, where I wanted to highlight local moms that were business owners. And it's just so many different things that could come about that. And then I just was like, I just love kind of teaching financial literacy and teaching building wealth through real estate.
So let's step a little bit into your mom side and a little bit away from your working side. And we see you got your Werking Mom mug up there with you. Good merchandise. So stepping into the mom side, as I already stated, you do have 2 boys and 2 girls. So what is it like, the difference between raising 2 boys? As you already said, you had your boys early on and the girls last. So what is it like, and what's the difference raising 2 girls and 2 boys?
So it's a huge difference to me personally. While I was a stay-at-home mom, I got pregnant with my last baby girl, which is Jordan Bree, and she pretty much is like the kid that sealed the deal. She is definitely like what holds everything together. She's her own personality. She is literally a mini version of me. You can't tell her anything. She's going to do what she wants. If you try to tell her no, her mind is going to go like, oh, you told me no? Oh, watch this. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's how her mind is going to go. So I feel like when nobody understood me growing up a little bit, because oftentimes that comes off as disrespectful and like, oh, you're trying to be rude or disrespectful, but it's really not your intentions at all. So I had to try to teach her a little bit how to tame that, but I understand it because that's how I am a little bit. And that's how people always, told me I was, where I'm just like, same thing, like, wait a minute. So you want to tell me I can't do this? Or I'm going to do it 10 times now because you tried, and I'm going to show you, and I'm not going to say nothing. I'm just going to invite you over for you to see the 10 times I did it. Like, that's how my mind is going to work. So I feel like having the boys were definitely a more quiet home, a more mellow. Like the boys are just more chill, but the boys are not as fun as the girls. And when I say that, it's just because boys are boys. So like they pretty much just they after they finish their sports, they like, oh, let me lay down, leave us alone. And pretty much it just they eat and they chill. The great thing I love about the girls is that we have our girls trips that we started a few years ago, and we haven't been since COVID. But the girls absolutely adore the girls trips because the girls are game on anything. I'm like, hey girls, y'all want to go painting? They like, yep. Y'all want to go to the museum? Yep. Y'all want to go to a skate room? Yep. Like any y'all want to go skating? Yep. We want to go boat? Like anything I say, they like, yep, let's do it then. I can even say like, girls, y'all want to go to the movies today? Even if it's like the worst movies ever in the movie theater, we will pick one and just go and suck it up. If I ask the boys, they'll once they look at that lineup, they be like, no, we good. Like they're not even trying to mess with none of that. So I feel like it's definitely a big difference. But I do love our dynamics of like the two boys and then they're the oldest and the two girls so they can be, together. And all of my kids are really, really close. So I'm kind of blessed to have that because my biggest fear is as they get older and like come into their personalities, like I don't want my kids to ever like not speak to each other or not be friends or like catch feelings because of what the other one said or like start looking at the other one in jealousy or envy or like well, I didn't get that when I was and now y'all are able to get this. Like I just really want them to all see that it's they're all unique and they're all different in their own aspects. And me as a mom, I really try their unique, but make it a lot really. Like I would always send them to whatever school was a fit for their personality. So even if I had to drive here and there, like to get to school or to get to activities, like you would think just because I have two boys, just stick them both in basketball, send them at the same camp. And I really wouldn't do that. Like if Martise told me he wasn't interested and Monte told me he wanted to do something else, and we would do whatever Monte made whatever made him happy, and then whatever Martise had interest in, we would explore that. And that's the kind of same thing I do with the girls also. And like I said, they all go to different schools, elementary, middle, high school, whatever's a good fit for them. Then I pretty much try to find a school that will enrich kind of what their vision is for their future. And then I'll ask the other child and kind of focus on what kind of institute is best for them. Sometimes if it so happens to be like a few years, the girls went to the same school because it so happens kind of mesh to be the same thing. And now they're back at schools again. And that's fine with me. I just take whoever, where they need to go and kind of just focus on building that individual person while we all respect that we're unique a little bit.
All right. Before we get into some of these important questions, I gotta hear you speak a little bit on Simply Bully. I read your segment myself. I was ready like,
yes.
I'm definitely, I love that segment. I ain't gonna lie.
July segment of Simply Bowie. So speak a little bit about how you felt when you see yourself on the cover of a magazine.
So it didn't really hit me too. I think it came out and other people were like, oh my God, I saw you on the cover of the magazine. That's so exciting. And I feel like in the beginning, I wasn't even really that excited. I was just still about my day. And I was just like, yeah, they called me on the magazine. I didn't have makeup scheduled. I didn't have like really an outfit scheduled. I didn't have any of that stuff. But I'm up doing it. I'm always so nervous about when people ask me to kind of tell my story a little bit. But I will say, right in my first book, again, The Fragrance of a Resilient Woman, it really almost allowed me to like just ask me at this point. I mean, it is what it is. My story and my truth is my truth. But then I started realizing that the more I started kind of reaching certain accomplishments in real estate, that other realtors also like were calling me to mentor with me and wanted to obtain that knowledge. And now it just started really making me feel like a lot more humble to share that information and grateful that I had made it to this place, especially being where I come from. And a lot of people that know me now definitely don't know where I came from. So they just think that this is all something that came about. But I know, from the very beginning. So just seeing the cover and just even the photo shoot, like I've never really done a photo shoot like that. Like it took hours to capture like this one photo, and just the experience within itself was just something that I'll probably never forget. They always reach out to me to like send me additional magazines for additional months. And then obviously I'm in the process now of writing my second book. This book is going to be 100% on real estate investing, because that's what people always want to know about me. I feel like I told my life already. I don't know if anybody else cares about my life anymore. But I know everybody wants to know about this real estate. They want to know, like, you talk all this building wealth through real estate. Tell us how to do it. And real estate has definitely changed my world. Like it is definitely one of those industries that have so many different avenues you can go into. I mean, it's no ceiling on the amount of income you want to make. Even when I started my own team, the McArthur Group, I just tell all of my realtors, like, it's up to you what you want to be. You know, you want to make a lot of money, this is where you can do that. You want to make a little bit of money, you can do that here too. You know what I'm saying? Like it's however you want to swing it. And let's just say you have a month where you need a lot of money. You can do that too. And then maybe back up a little bit. Like sometimes I start getting so busy. And then sometimes I might be like, you know what, next month, let me not necessarily fall back because I like the money, but I need to handle some other things. So I might need to not close as many transactions that month as I did the previous month, because you know I need my time back a little bit, because that's just one thing that we can't change. We can't change the amount of time that God gave us all every day. I always say if I was to create something, I would probably create like a magic pill where somebody that's like doesn't need all of their time every day can like lend me 3 hours, because I'm always fighting for time. Like that's just one thing I'm always doing. I'm always fighting against the clock for time. But again, in order to combat that, I just went into my business mode again and started thinking like, what can I do to also combat time and still keep my income where it needs to be, and what my goals are. So I started my team, and I also started mentoring. So right now I have, between my team and the mentorship program that I have, that I work with, I probably have like 37 realtors that mentor with me. So that's basically an easy additional stream just to kind of teach them, because again, the knowledge is what's priceless. It's not necessarily about, the income and splits and so forth. It's about, if you give the person the knowledge, they can turn around and make $1 million off of it. So what they want is the information. Well, they can definitely reach me on any of my social media platforms. The McArthur Group on Facebook, the McArthur Group on Instagram. Also, all of my investment pages. TMG Homes is my investment company. I kind of have those separated so I can be able to post like all of my investment stuff. I used to have it together, but I started realizing that people wanted to actually like follow projects that we were doing. So from start to finish, I kind of put them over on its own platform. So whenever we have an investment property that we're renovating or flipping, they can go and kind of follow from start to finish there. So that's TMG Homes on Instagram, and TMG Homes LLC on Facebook. And then obviously for financial literacy, the Working Mom, Working WERKING. So you can find me on YouTube, the Working Mom Podcast. I have also an Instagram and Facebook for the Working Mom, and my McArthur Group is on Twitter, LinkedIn, almost any platform. I'm there. I always give out my direct cell number. So, give me a call. You're motivated and you're serious and you want to learn this industry. I'm definitely open to having a consultation with you and kind of teaching you all that I know, all the different strategies and tricks of the trade as well.
And with you being the working mom, being an award-winning realtor, a real estate investor, now becoming an author, working on getting your broker's license, working on getting your doctorate, and with everything going on, talk a little bit about how you keep yourself level-headed, how you stay balanced, like how you don't overwork yourself and drain yourself, how you still have time for your marriage and your kids. So what are some things that keep you leveled and keep you balanced? Because we know that definitely can be a lot on you trying to, if you keep pushing, you're eventually going to run out of energy. So how do you stay balanced and level?
So I finished my broker's license maybe a month or two ago. And then once I finished my broker's license, I immediately started, which I'm doing now, researching different spaces and so forth. I'm also in the process of opening my own real estate and financial literacy academy, which will be a private career school in Maryland to be able to formally teach building wealth through real estate and financial literacy. That's a huge application process, and kind of whenever I have a break from my doctorate classes, I kind of work on my application a little bit. But I will say the main thing that keeps me grounded is just not necessarily all of these accolades and all of these achievements, but these are just like personal goals of mine. So say if anybody had any kind of other personal goals, once you achieve them, then it kind of just gives you that, sense of fulfillment. And that's kind of how it is with this, because these are just things that I've always desired to do. And I guess the most important thing at this stage is being able to give back. So again, being able to help someone else. I'm starting to look into like tons of different charities in Baltimore and partnering with different businesses so we can do things to give back to local people in Baltimore, local kids. Also, like I said, teen mom organizations. But the truth of the matter is, for the most part, even on my free time, I still just enjoy like just hanging with my kids a little bit. Like none of them are boring. So it's like if they were probably boring kids, then maybe it would be different. But like when I do have downtime, like if we just go like to the movies or skating or like any little thing like that, I pretty much can just, I'm really a homebody a little bit. And I will say that one of my goals were always, because I am a homebody and I do like being with my kids. I know the pandemic has kind of made everybody kind of get into that mind frame a little bit, but I feel like I was already in that mind frame like 15 years ago, where I really like my home to be kind of like everything I ever desired that I wanted could be home. Like if I never had to leave here and for some reason everything got shut down, like I like to have a place
You cool with
where
that?
everything I love
Yeah,
can be
cool.
here. Like, yeah, like I'm okay with that. Yeah, like my favorite thing in the world is cancel plans. So I'm not trying to find more plans because I have a lot going on. So, don't be afraid to cancel on me. I'm okay with it. So cancel plans are amazing. Just being able to chill, get in that mindset. But I will say one personal thing that I love to do that kind of gets me centered is I love working out. And I always jokingly say to my realtors, I say like, even if I never get back to my high school weight, something about like working out and being active and being out when it's a nice day to ride my bike or hop on the jump rope or run a hill or something. Like I might literally be out of breath and like just being out there with the kids, and they love to see me run a hill, knowing I can't run as quick as they do and all that stuff. But um just to keep up with it and just be a part, so not that long ago, I implemented going back to my personal trainer. So I do that like once a week at 6 a.m. And every time I get there, I'm just like, I don't know how I got here this morning. I'm so tired. And she's like, okay, well, let's go. Um, and I'm like, no matter what. And she's like, okay, well, let's go. Um, and I'm like, no matter what, when you have that person standing there waiting for you at 6 a.m., like she's not going to weaken the routine because I'm tired. She's going to be like, let's go. And you got 10 seconds, like no break, let's go again. So that's one thing that I actually love. And that kind of helps with my mental health as well. Just being able to, just go to the gym. And again, just when I do have that downtime, and I create that now that I'm in the space of being where I need to be, where I can really flex my own schedule and do what I want every day and move how I want every day. Sometimes if I see my girls, because when I get really, really busy, they start complaining like, that they've been trying to go to the nail salon all week or something like that. And then I don't really have time to make it. So then, what I'll do is I'll like block off like the next 3 days, and then it's just us. Like we'll just hang together and do certain things. And I feel like that just kind of brings it back around and kind of gets me back on track But I do have those months where, I do have something that I possibly want to achieve. And then I got to go hard for work because unfortunately everything costs money. So some of these things that I'm trying to do is investing back in myself. But I do have to, put on the extra, like I got to do it and then get that extra win and kind of go hard sometimes. And then I'll pull myself back when I see that I need some more time. But I'm not going to say that in doing all of this, you don't lose a piece of something, because I definitely lose my personal life. Like it's balanced to everything, but I can't do everything, and I'm glad that I'm a type of person that don't need to socialize as much. Like the social life is not a part of me. So I feel like this is a good fit for me. But every now and then when I do feel like I need to, go out to a comedy show. I also love concerts. So I love traveling to a quick concert, but again, it's usually like that crazy travel that everybody's like, I can't believe you didn't put everybody to bed, finish work, head across town to Atlanta, Georgia or something, see 2 Chains and head back by in the morning. When everybody get up for school, I'm already ready to go, like 5:30 in the morning. I'm back from the concert and we ready to rock and roll. And they're like, where? I'm like, oh yeah, I just left Atlanta last night. And they're like, huh? Yeah.
All right, so
yeah. So I do like doing stuff like that too.
you can keep going if you still would. But all right, so do you have?
Oh no, I'm saying that, stuff like that I like.
Do you have any regrets right now today? If so, why? If not, why?
So I'm not one of those people that say I don't live with regrets. Like the word regret to me doesn't play like a part in, like some people are like, you shouldn't live with regrets and things like that. I'm one of those people that's the exact opposite. Like I almost get nervous when people say that they don't live with regrets. Like I do understand that everything is a learning lesson, but I'm kind of like, you have to possibly would have done things differently. Like, and that's kind of how I am a little bit. Like I regret a ton of things. Like that's just what the truth is. Like it's a ton of things that if I could take myself now and go back, I would absolutely not do. Like I wouldn't look at it like, say if I'm standing here looking at myself 20 years ago, I wouldn't say, Ebony, still go do X, Y, and Z so you can learn from it. No, I would be like, Ebony, don't open that door. Turn the other way. Don't go to that house that night. Don't go over to that party. Don't do this. Like I would probably tell myself like not to do a ton of things. So I just say I'm always trying to be 1% better, especially like in my personal life and things like that I really kind of want to be a better person at, because I feel like business, I can control that a little more because that's just kind of how I am a little bit. I'm kind of like a machine on the business side. And I also feel on the business side, like if I never achieve anything else, I'm okay with that right now. Like say if God just said, you can't do anything else with business, I'm okay with staying in the space that I'm in, and I still would feel accomplished. But on my personal side, it's just still so much more that I would want to do and want to achieve. And just kind of sometimes now I like my peace a little bit more. Like sometimes it's quiet time. Like I don't need to really go hang out, but just that moment of quiet space. And just kind of recentering. I went to this thing last weekend and they had someone there that was doing kind of like sound healing, and we just kind of closed our eyes and did deep breath, played the beautiful flute in the background. All of a sudden, like when you just stay still and just take a deep breath in and you're not constantly moving, like I don't know if it was like just me, but I could feel the wind, and I was just like everything around me just enlightened. Like I'm just like, I really feel like things are moving and I'm still. So just kind of taking all that in, I've gotten a little, more into just speaking about things and becoming comfortable with who I am as a person, and not really living like where, who I am, you just accept me. Like, no, I'm trying to be a better person all the time. I'm trying to do better. Like when I know better, I want to do better. I want to constantly be doing what and learning better methods, better strategies. So me personally, I absolutely live with regrets, and it's tons of things that I would possibly change. But again, it's the person that I am today. But if I could, I would probably go back and do a lot of things differently.
Nah, definitely glad you said that because there's people to this. That's crazy. We had this conversation a couple of days ago. Really, like people literally talk about, like, bro, I wouldn't go change nothing. Like, it's no way you're telling me in that amount of life that you wouldn't go change nothing at all.
People that say, "Oh, if I had the chance to do it all over again, I'll do it in the same shoes, the same exact way." And it's like, I understand. Like me personally, I don't think I live with a lot of regrets because I really look at them as like lessons, and I like learn from other people. So if I see someone else make a mistake, I'm not gonna go make that same exact mistake. But it's like, there's no way if you were able to go back and restart life all the way over, you would do every single thing you did the first time the same exact way. Like that wouldn't even. That's just not even smart, to be honest. But our last question, we do have one last question for you before we let you go. A lot of people don't really take the time and just like live in the moment, like understand where you came from, where you started at, how far you came, and just take the time to just appreciate life and just appreciate the thing that you do have right now. So our last question is, mentally right now, with 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest, where would you say you're at mentally right now?
Mentally as far as business, or mentally as far as personal, or are we combining it into
Keep bringing both lives together.
one?
You can give 2 separate answers if you want. You can give a personal and a business.
Yeah, I feel like me as a whole. I don't know as a whole. I feel like my number would be somewhere mid as a entity, because bringing personal and business together is like my struggle a little bit. Again, because it's a lot of things in my personal life that I haven't done. I've not even traveled out of the country or anything. Like, it's tons of things that I would possibly love to do. And kind of find my happiness. Okay. So I would say on business, I'm probably close to 8.5-ish. So I feel like in the next 5 years, or maybe even less, I'll probably reach almost everything that I aspire at this point in time in my life. Now, maybe something else may come up once I get to 5 years. I'm sure I'll come up with another plan. But right now, everything that I want to accomplish should possibly be done in probably the next 3 years. It'll probably just to be about building more on top of that, but kind of just everything I want to do once I finish my doctorate. I'm not going back to school, that'll be done. So other than just kind of continuing education, but not like in a formal manner. So that's all. I'm almost at the end of that road. And then my brokerage space is opening different locations up as well. And then obviously MacArthur Group Real Estate and Financial Literacy Academy. So my LLC has already been approved. My application is in process right now for that to become an actual private career school. So once that's up and going, other than expanding for different locations and things like that, I'm pretty much okay with that as far as business wise. So I would say in the next 3 to 5 years, definitely. Again, if I don't add anything, and I feel like if I do add things, I'm going to add more fun things. Like I always jokingly say that I want to have an ice cream or a snowball truck. So that's what I think that I will. I think I'll go back and do that. I always say I want to have like either I don't know if I want to do an ice cream truck with some candy and like the old school penny candies or something, or maybe a snowball truck or something like that. So if I do something else in business, I'm probably going to take it more to like something fun that's like off the grid, something that I've just always meant to randomly do. But as far as my personal life, I'm probably even under a 5. I might be even like at a 3.5 or a 4 in my personal life. It's just so much more that I would like to do, so much more that I would like to accomplish. I feel like thus far, I probably haven't even really done much towards my own happiness and what makes me happy, other than still just with the kids, but they won't be all little for much longer. And once everybody's off to college and so forth, then we'll still be able to do our vacations and things like that, but it's not going to be an everyday part of my life. So I'm pretty much starting to look forward to what do I do with that time? Like, what do I do with that space? A piece of me is probably saying I would probably go buy houses wherever you guys are, and then I can easily just come there. I don't know.
No, you're welcome. No, you're welcome.
It's a storm going on down here right now.
Yeah, give us a couple.
Yeah, I don't. That's what I said. I don't know if I would stay there permanently because I don't know about all these different locations that y'all like to, that you guys are exploring. I don't want to be stuck in a storm. I don't want to be a part of like some crazy racist rally or something crazy.
We'd be all right. We'd be good sitting out.
Yeah. Yeah, I just probably get like some places, and then when I'm not there, it can be an Airbnb or something. But obviously, you know, even though I'm still young because I started young, obviously I know that, you know, I'll have grandkids and things like that. And I just want to get myself to a place where when that comes, then I don't want to be like far away. You know, I want to be somewhere where I can, you know, I do, if you can't say that you do all of this for your children. And then when it's time to really be able to spend time with them, you can't because you're working again. You know what I'm saying? So that's not how I see myself, you know, and not you having any children, no, but somebody eventually, hopefully in 15 years will have some children. And not saying that I'm saying have grandchildren, but I know it's just inevitable. I mean, you guys are going to grow up and get older. So I just want to make sure that I'm setting my life up where I don't want to be that grandparent that still has to go to work and call me when I get off of work. Like I want to take that time to really, hopefully be able to have, you know, my health and my mind where I can enjoy all of this that I've kind of done in. But yeah, personal, it's a ton of things that I would like to do. I would like to see. Like I said, I do like traveling. I'm not a plain person like that, for the truth, but I just like doing different things. And like, I'm always curious about when I go to different cities, like what is the history of this city? Like, is some lesson in this city? And just my mind goes to a different place when I do travel versus just like trying to club and party or something. I'm always like, you know, let me do the museum and then the club. You know, that's how I am a little bit. But it's so much more for me to see. So I would say my personal life, I probably have a lot more to go.
Got you.
We definitely, we proud of you. Before we say anything else, we definitely proud of you. Like hearing this all, I already knew some of it a little bit. You know, we all kind of grew around each other and everything. Me and Tay. So like, just hearing that more, like you definitely like Superwoman is definitely a tag that you should feel proud to wear for sure.
Definitely the Working Mom, and here on Mental Health Podcast, we definitely wanted to give everybody their flowers while they're here. So I'm definitely extremely proud of you. I wouldn't be where I'm at without you. You already know this. I literally get choked up every time I even try to speak about everything you do and how proud I am, and like you literally my role model. I know where we came from, so it just gives me an even more chip on my shoulder that like, yeah, F all y'all that doubted my mom. Like we gonna do this. So once again, congrats on Simply Buoy. I'm extremely proud of you. The Fragrance of a Resilient Woman. Where can we find the Fragrance of the Resilient Woman if anybody wants to get a copy of this book?
So all the links to the Fragrance of a Resilient Woman is in my social media bios. You can also find it on Amazon. If you just type in my name, Ebony McArthur, it should pop up. If anybody's interested in a signed copy of it, I'm always happy to autograph them. You could just send me a DM and I'll definitely get an autograph copy out as well. And I definitely appreciate it. You guys have been awesome. I'm also so very proud of you guys. And more importantly, similar to what Monte said, he is the one that actually makes me look good, because obviously having a child and being pregnant at 13, if you were to turn out to just be, you know, a terror, it would, no matter what I did, it would probably not look right.
Right.
So, I mean, what makes me stand out and what makes this story come full circle is I always say, like, and for everybody that has something to say, I would love for you to meet my son. Like, he's, graduating college, he went in and out 4 years, never had any like major issues of anything ever, like just fun kid stuff, always stay focused, responsible, always well spoken and just respectable. And it's just like, seeing you guys, and every time I tell people about all that you guys have going on, like my kids is what makes this story full circle. Because again, I can do everything that I want to do. I'm an adult now, so everybody may look at it like, oh, okay, she went back to her doctorate, she went back to do all of these things. But just setting an example and being able to see, like, everybody is falling into a place where, they're happy, healthy, doing things that they want to do, and just like reaching that next milestone. And I always jokingly say, if you think that I'm Superwoman, or my kids are me on steroids, like my kids are definitely like, if they want to do something, they're not taking no for an answer. They're going for it. They're trying things like no, you know, $5 an hour is gonna hold them back. They going like, nope, forget this job. Let me go do this. Let me be an entrepreneur. Let me try this. So I'm definitely proud of you guys. You guys are, I tell people about you all the time. I always say, like, yeah, my son just went down to Houston by himself, but his cousin Will down there with him now. So everybody knows that Will's down there. And I always get the question, like, how close are they to each other? I'm like, they're in the same place. They right there with each other. So I tell everybody.
Yeah, we definitely got big things planned, and you feel me?
And we would love to get on the Working Mom podcast.
Yeah, we definitely gotta come back and do your podcast again too. We got new stuff going on, so we definitely can get back on your podcast.
Absolutely.
Can you give everyone all your social media tags again and where they can get in touch with you at for any questions?
Yep. So on Facebook, I am the McArthur Group. On Instagram, the McArthur Group. You can also find my Working Mom business page on Facebook at the Working Mom LLC, as well as on Instagram, the Working Mom LLC. And if you want to follow any of my investment properties, that's TMG Homes LLC on Facebook and TMG Homes on Instagram. My website is www.themacarthurgroup.com. You can follow all of my Financial Friday tips, all of my financial literacy tips, see all my team, amazing realtors that are learning this industry and they're coming to take over as well. All of my book can also be purchased on my website as well. But all the things that we have up and coming will all be there once we have the school open. All the information for the McArthur Group Real Estate and Financial Literacy Academy will be posted on the website as well.
Thank you. Make sure you guys go get this book, Fragrance of a Resilient Woman. Make sure you guys tap into the life of the working mom so you guys can see what's next in her journey. And we love you. We wish you nothing but the best blessings. And we thank you for being the first episode of the EYEAM Mental Health Podcast.
Thank you.
Appreciate you for your time.
Thank you.